Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. My name's Mel. Thank you so much for joining me today for the mid-year freakout tag. So the mid-year freakout tag is a bookish tag that pretty much everyone on BookTube does around the middle of the year. It was actually created by my very good friend Ellie from Earl Grey Books. I have linked her channel in the description below so that you can go and check her out. So the idea of the tag is we talk about our reading so far this year and then we look a little bit forward into the rest of the year. So I'm just going to go straight into the questions for you now. The first question is, name the best book that you've read so far this year. This was a little too difficult for me because I have had the very great pleasure of reading quite a number of books that I've really loved this year so far. So I've actually chosen 4 books. You might be seeing a pattern here, but anyway. Those 4 books are Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab, Kindred by Octavia E. Butler, and The Lies of Locke Lamora by Lynch. Just to give you an incredibly brief synopsis of all of those books, Crescent City is the first book in a new series by Sarah J. Maas. It is an urban fantasy. It features all sorts of different fantastical and paranormal creatures like angels, fae, werewolves, vampires, demons, all sorts of things like that. And we follow 2 main characters, Bryce and Hunt. Bryce is a young half-fae, half-human woman whose best friend died a few years before the story begins, and Hunt is an angel who is part of the celestial kind of police force, and he is trying to solve the mystery of Bryce's best friend's death, and so Bryce has been drawn into the hunt. But there's a lot more going on than just those things it would suggest, and I thought that it was really fun, really well written, and a really immersive story, so that was definitely a favourite for me so far this year. Then we have The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, which is about a young woman who, when she was 18, was being forced into marrying someone that she didn't want to marry. This was back in the 1700s, so it wasn't just a forced marriage, but also the fact that she basically had no control over her life because she's a woman living back then. And she makes a deal with the devil, and the deal is that she will live forever, but she won't ever be remembered by anyone. So Addie lives her life in that way until many years, centuries later, and suddenly she comes across someone who actually remembers her. The story goes from there. I thought it was really well written. I thought it was beautiful prose, really lyrically written. I loved the characters of Addie and Henry. I just loved the way that V.E. Schwab wove the story of the 2 different characters in together and wove the different time periods and the different points of view together. I thought it was really well done. So yeah, that's why that one is another favourite. Then we have Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. This book is just amazing. It's so well written, it's so fast paced, it's so engaging. It deals with slavery and some of the horrors surrounding slavery and the experiences that slaves had to go through in that period of time in the world, in America, but it does so looking through the lens of a black woman who goes back in time. So she comes from the 1970s, which in no way is not also fraught with all sorts of issues surrounding racism and white supremacy, but with a somewhat different focus on the world, different view of the world. She goes back in time and is confronted with slavery in a very real way. Not being a black woman, I have never experienced that kind of racism, so I thought that it was really well told, and I just found it incredible but also quite upsetting. So it was really great to get that perspective. And then finally we have The Lies of Locke Lamora. This is the first book in the Gentleman Bastard series by Lynch. It is just wonderful high fantasy. We follow a gang of thieves and scoundrels as they attempt to pull off a bunch of different heists, but there's also a bunch of other stuff going on and various different things happening, machinations in the city and the courts of the city that end up involving them, even though they don't intend for it to, and they get into all sorts of scrapes and trouble. Locke is forever getting himself into scrapes, which his best friend Jean then have to get him out of again, and it's just beautifully written, very Shakespearean in a way, and I really, really, really enjoyed it. Currently about 2/3 of the way through the second book in the series, and I'm really loving that one as well, but I haven't finished it yet, so it can't count, but also I do prefer the first one just a little bit more. Okay, so question number 2 is the best sequel you've read so far. I'm going to go with A Court of Mist and Fury. This is the second book in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series by Sarah J. Maas. I just loved it. I really enjoyed Akata, which is A Court of Thorns and Roses, which is the first one. It is the Beauty and the Beast retelling that everyone talks about. It is about Fae, and it's in a world where Fae and humans exist in the world together, but they don't get along, and Feyre is a human, and she, for various reasons, is found in a position where she has to go and live amongst the Fae, and then you can imagine what kind of story it becomes because it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling. The second book, which is A Court of Mist and Fury, or Akamath, quite different. I just really love the way that we continue with the storyline, but we very much change a lot of what we saw in A Court of Thorns and Roses. A lot of the assumptions that we made are very much questioned in the second one, and there's a lot of really interesting stuff in the second one that I really, really, really enjoyed. I thought it was a fantastic book, a fantastic sequel, and I thought it was much better than A Court of Thorns and Roses, even though I thoroughly enjoyed A Court of Thorns and Roses, so definitely Akamath. Next question is to name a new release that you haven't read yet but that you would like to. So those people who've been around for a little while, you would know that I'm quite the backlist reader. I don't tend to be very up to date with books that are coming out, books that have just come out, even though I do watch a lot of booktubers. You guys are very good at keeping on top of these things. I still manage not to be. So usually I wouldn't have an answer to this question, but I actually do this time, and that is One Last Stop by Casey McQuisten. So this is the second book by Casey McQuisten. Her first book was Red, White and Royal Blue, which I think pretty much everyone in the booktonet sphere knows about. One Last Stop is a female-female romance, and there's a little bit of time travel involved, and I just think it sounds really sweet and really lovely, so I'm definitely keen to read that one at some point. Like I said, I'm not really a person who goes hunting for the new releases, so if I don't get to it for, a while, that will be completely fine, but I am looking forward to reading it. It sounds great. And then the next question is the most anticipated release in the second half of the year. So One Last Stop was released, I believe, in early June, so I'm just getting in there with it being a release that's already happened. And then the next one is about new releases coming out in the second half of the year. Again, I normally don't have an answer to this question because I don't tend to be a person that really keeps track of these things and waits impatiently for things, or patiently. I do actually have one this time, and that is Seven Sisters. This is the sequel to Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman. So Neverwhere is about an underground magical London that you only know about if you are a member of the magical underground London, and we follow a young man, Richard Mayhew, who accidentally embroils himself in the affairs of a young woman from other London and a London below, as it is in Neverwhere. Then he suddenly no longer really has a place in the world of London above and doesn't really have a place in the world of London below, but he tries to figure out how to be a part of London below, and that's the adventure. But then, so Seven Sisters is the follow-on. I have no idea whether it's going to follow Richard Mayhew or any of the characters from Neverwhere. I have no idea whether it's going to even be in London below. It could be an alternative version of New York or Sydney or any other city in the world, but I'm expecting that it'll be something along those lines. All I know is it's a sequel. I love Neverwhere. It's one of my favourite books, so sounds amazing to me. Next question is the biggest disappointment for you this year. Now, before I tell you my answer to this question, I just like to put a caveat out there, which is that when I say something is a disappointment, it doesn't necessarily even mean that I didn't like it. It just means that from everything I've heard about it, from everything that I was expecting from it, it maybe didn't live up to the hype or the expectations. The reason I want to put that caveat out there is because the book that I'm most disappointed by was actually Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. I know, I'm very sorry, but like I said, it's not to say I didn't enjoy it. I did enjoy it. I had a great deal of fun with it. I'm glad I read it. Personally, and it's very rare that I say this, but personally, I actually enjoyed the TV show more. Yeah, it just didn't live up to the hype. It didn't live up to my expectation. The only books of Leigh Bardugo's that I've ever read is Ninth House, and I absolutely loved it. I don't know if Shadow and Bone was her first book and she's just gotten better as a writer, and that's why. I don't know if Ninth House is an adult, whereas Shadow and Bone is young adult, and that's why. But for whatever reason, Shadow and Bone, I was expecting it to be at least a 4-star, if not a 5-star, and it came in at 3. Again, 3 stars still pretty good. I still did enjoy it. I would definitely recommend people read it, but I just was expecting more. Next question is the biggest surprise for the year so far. So my biggest surprise this year was actually The Interrogation of Ashala Wolf by Ambelin Kwaymullina. I really, really enjoyed this one, and I went in fairly blind. I didn't really know what to expect from the book. I didn't really know anything about the author. I had barely heard anyone talk about it, so I really wasn't sure what to expect, but I did really, really enjoy it. So it's a part sort of science fiction, part fantasy, and part dystopian. We follow Ashala Wolf, who is part of the Tribe, which is a group of young people who have broken away from the government and the current situation that the rest of civilization is in, and the society they've set up, and they've broken away and formed their own tribe. And they are people who have various different sort of magical or paranormal abilities, which is very much frowned upon by the current government, and so they are hunted individuals and they have to live in secret. It's about what happens when Ashala is captured by the government and how what happens in her interrogation. And yeah, I just really enjoyed it. Like I said, I was really surprised. I was expecting to like it, I just wasn't expecting to think it was amazing. So there you go. Alright, so the next question is to name my favourite new author. You probably can see this one coming, but a favourite new author of mine is Sarah J. Maas. I have read Crescent City, and I am up to book 3 of the ACOTAR series, so I haven't read a huge amount of Sarah J. Maas's books. I have heard mixed things about some of her books. Most people I've heard love them, some people are okay with them, but I have just been really, really enjoying them. Yeah, so I would say Sarah J. Maas. And the next question is to name your newest fictional crush. I don't know if I ever had fictional crushes in the like, I have a crush on that person, I would like to date that person kind of way. I definitely found fictional characters attractive, but whether or not I fantasized about them, I don't really know, but I don't think I do that anymore. But if I was going to say that I had a new fictional crush, it would either be basically anyone from Rysand's Inner Circle, so again from ACOTAR series, so Rysand, Cassian, Azriel, Moore, even Amren maybe? Any of those, because who doesn't love some badass, tortured, supernatural beings? The other option would be Leon from, what is it called? Flatshare by Beth O'Leary. I just thought that he was such a sweetheart. He had so much going on, but he really obviously cared about Tiffy, and I just really loved their relationship, and I loved Leon. And he is a dysfunctional, sweet little nerd, which, you know, who doesn't love that? Next question is to name my newest favourite character. I have 2, and they are Locke, Lamora, and Jean Tannen from the Gentleman Bastard series. I just love their friendship. I love the way that they are connected. They're always loyal to each other. They're the perfect example of an amazing platonic friendship. They will do anything for each other. They love each other completely, and they're always loyal to each other, but they fully acknowledge that the other person has wants and needs outside of their friendship, and they're more than happy for that to happen as well. And I just think it's just a beautiful relationship, and I will absolutely love it. Plus, I think they're really well-rounded, well-written characters. I think that they have their own personalities. It isn't just about their relationship together. They have their own stuff going on. Jean is very different from Locke, but equally a incredible character. And yeah, I think Scott Lynch has written some amazing characters. Next up is a book that made you cry. I have to say that I feel like I've been very fortunate this year in the sense that I haven't found myself getting teary over books. Not to say that I haven't read books that aren't moving in any way or don't make me feel emotions or feel sad or feel anger or feel any of the emotions that would make me cry or even incredible happiness, but I've just not really teared up over any books this year. So yeah, I don't really have an answer for that one. Next up, I have to name a book that makes me happy. I mean, books in general, books make me happy. I love books. I happen to be sitting in front of a bookshelf that contains some of my favourite books of all time with my favourite authors. So we have the Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. We have a bunch of Neil Gaiman. We have a bunch of Terry Pratchett. Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett are some of my favourite authors of all time. The Lord of the Rings is an old favourite. So yeah, some of these. But books in general, really, you know, just books. Next up is to name the most beautiful book that you've purchased or that you've received this year. I did find this one difficult as well because I have, again, been fortunate enough to be able to purchase and receive a bunch of really beautiful books. I think that book covers in general are just beautiful at the moment. I think that there's been a lot of attention to how they're presented, and I really, really appreciate that. And yeah, I think that I have some amazing books at the moment. But I have to say that I think what I decided was the most beautiful book that I've received this year was The 10,000 Doors of January by someone whose name I've forgotten, but it'll be up here. This is simply because I do own it, I do have it, but apparently I forgot to get it off the shelf and I'm too lazy to go and get it right now. So the image will be here, but I do own it. A beautiful hardcover copy of it. This was sent to me for my birthday by my wonderful friend Connor from Connor's Library Corner. So thank you again, Connor. I really, really appreciate it. And yeah, most beautiful book I've received this year. So the next question is that I need to say what books I need to read by the end of the year. I have a video that's about the books that will self-destruct in 12 months if I don't read them. I put that one up in early March, so technically I have a couple of months after the end of this year, but I'm going to say the books that I said in that one, I will link it in the description below and in the eye. But yeah, those books in there, I've only read one book from that video, so I need to get a jump on that because otherwise I will have to unhaul them. So those books are a priority. Otherwise, I really want to get to Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. Having said that, Shadow and Bone was a bit of a disappointment this year. I am still really intrigued by the world. I'm really intrigued by the Grishaverse. I really enjoyed the TV show. I loved the characters of the Crows, so I'm really excited to read their story in Six of Crows. Yeah, so those ones. And finally, I need to name my favourite Book2Net community member. I mean, what a question. I just feel like I've made a lot of great friends whilst I've been on BookTube. I feel like I've had a lot of really fantastic interactions with people and done a lot of really fun stuff with people, lots of collaborations, and yeah, so it's quite difficult to name my favourite community member, and I certainly wouldn't want to name one or two people at the expense of other people who I also really, really love and appreciate. But I would like to draw your attention back to the creator of this tag, and that is Ellie from Earl Grey Books. Ellie is just such a warm, loving, friendly person. Her videos are always so calm and comforting. Ellie and I chat basically daily at this point, and we just are really great friends, and it's really lovely. And yeah, I highly recommend that you go and check out Ellie's channel. I think she is incredibly underrated, and I don't know why more people aren't subscribed to her. So if you're not subscribed to Ellie's channel, then please go and do so right now because she's just fantastic and everyone should be subscribed and watching her content. Alright, and that is the end of the mid-year freakout tag. Please comment below if you have any thoughts on any of the books that I mentioned, what you would answer those questions. Have you done or are you doing the mid-year freakout tag? Please do put the links to those in the description below. I'd love to go and check those out as well. I do love this tag and I love watching everyone's answers. If you'd like to leave me a comment but you don't know what, then please go ahead and leave me some kind of emoji. All of my social media details are listed in the description below, so if you'd like to go and follow me on any of those platforms, please feel free to do so. Thank you so much for watching. I really do hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, I would love it if you would go and subscribe to my channel and give me a thumbs up. And yeah, like I said, thank you so much for watching and I will see you next time.